Hello and welcome to episode 91 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. Of course, I am your host, Rick Doherty. In honor of Halloween, Sarah Says will be here to start our 3-episode conversation on the Haunted Mansion. Today, Sarah and I will go over some of your opinions from Haunted Mansion poll questions that we posted on Twitter. In the next 2 episodes, Sarah will be going over a lot of her research into the creation and backstory for the Haunted Mansion. Before we hear from Sarah, I will be chatting with Kiki from the YouTube channel That's So Kiki. In addition to being a content creator, Kiki also recently completed a stint in the Disney College program. It's going to be really interesting to listen to some of her experiences in that program. As many of you know, back in June, I walked Ireland's National Famine Way to raise money and awareness for CASA of Pinellas County, Florida, in the fight against domestic violence. We are wrapping up the fundraising efforts on Monday, the last day of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. This is literally the last time I will ask you to donate to this version of the fundraiser on the podcast. If you could donate $20 today at casapinellas.org/walkwithrick/ we would really, really appreciate it. That's casapinellas.org/walkwithrick/ There are no processing fees or middlemen, so every single dollar donated will go to CASA so that they can help survivors of abuse. Monday will also mark the debut of my 14th and final vlog from my pilgrimage in Ireland. Make sure you're subscribed to the Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty YouTube channel so that you can always catch the great videos we post over there. Now let's welcome Kiki back to the show. Thanks for being here, Kiki.
Hi. Of course. Thank you for having me.
So in just a few minutes, we're going to talk about your recent Disney College program experience. But before we do that, you have the YouTube channel That's So Kiki, and I wanted to ask you a little bit about what you've had very recently or what you have coming up on the channel.
Yeah, I have a lot of super fun stuff coming up. I just went to Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween party for the first real time because last time I went, there was a hurricane, so it got canceled. But I'm also going to Halloween Horror Nights this year, and I'm going to go to Hallow Scream at Busch Gardens for the first time, which I'm super excited about. So I have lots of super cool stuff coming up.
Awesome. And I do just want to say that Kiki was definitely safe during the recent hurricane in Central Florida. Even though she goes to school in Central Florida, she got shipped back home. Her mother was like, nope, you are not staying in Florida during this hurricane. And she evacuated back to the Rocky Mountain regions, we'll just say. And I obviously, you are hearing me interview Kiki, was safe as well. So we did want to address the recent hurricane. And both of us are safe, and both of us were safe. Now, I want to talk about your Disney College program because this is really, really exciting. You've said before when we've had you on the show that your goal is to eventually be the CEO of Disney, and I have no doubt that that is going to happen eventually. That's why I keep being so nice to you, because I want passes and media credentials and things like that. But you started off with your Disney College program, and I want to hear all about it. First of all, what was your area? Were you attractions? Were you retail? Where did they have you working?
Yeah, so I was merchandise at Yacht and Beach Club.
First of all, that is a fantastic resort. So that's really cool that you got to be at Yacht and Beach Club. So what was the experience like? You can obviously get a retail job over the summer almost anywhere. But do you feel that you got a whole lot out of working for Disney, specifically in the merchandising department?
Yes, definitely. I learned so much and I had so much fun. And I was able to work in all kinds of different locations. So I got to experience merchandise everywhere, like parks, resorts, water parks even. So I loved every minute of it.
So what's it like being on the other side of the register? What's it like being on the employment side, even though it was the college program, it wasn't, full employment, you're not there yet, but what was it like seeing the magic from the other side, being the person creating the magic as opposed to those of us who just get to soak up that magic every time we visit.
Yeah, I loved it. It was amazing. Like being able to create magic for people, that's pretty much what I dreamed of my entire life. So getting to do that, I absolutely love that. Now, of course, there were some not so magical days, but I feel like every day at Disney is at least somewhat magical because you're at Disney. So
Do you find yourself going to the parks now after your college program and you are so much more appreciative of the cast members?
yeah, so actually, I've only been to the parks once since my program ended because I just can't find time to get out there. But actually, yeah, I really do. Like, I go there and I thank every cast member that I come across. I'm like, thank you so much for making magic because we really appreciate you.
So we often see stories of guests being rude to cast members. We see people being frustrated with the reservation system or frustrated with any number of the different changes. Or like we said recently, there are people who are so entitled that they even got upset for different things that weren't allowed because of the hurricane that went through Central Florida. When you're confronted with a situation like that, when you're confronted with a guest who is being confrontational, who is not enjoying the vacation, and you're trying to calm that situation, I assume that's a huge part of what they expect you to learn in the college program. But how do you stay motivated to do a good job when something like that is happening?
Oh, that's a great question. I will say it is definitely challenging, but you also have to keep in mind that for some people, this is their once in a lifetime trip and they kind of expect it to be perfect, even though it's not always going to be. So you just try to help them out however you can, just help them to like have a better experience than whatever they're currently going through.
And do you maybe have one or two examples of something that you did that was really, really appreciated that you can think of and be like, man, that is why I did this. That's why I wanted to work at Disney. That's why I wanted to do the college program. Like you gave a little magical moment to a kid and it was really appreciated, or something similar to that. Are there memories that you're going to take from this, specific memories that really made the whole thing worthwhile?
Yeah, I would think I have so many. I love giving out things to little kids, especially when they're like upset. So like I'll give them stickers, I'll give them like a free dessert. I give, parents free coffee in the morning. I love doing that kind of stuff. I guess one specific story was that we had a guest who stayed at our resort and could not find a shirt for her son that she really wanted. So she flew back home and then she called and she was like, is there any way that we could find this shirt and maybe get it shipped? So I spent about 2 to 3 hours looking for the shirt and trying to work with my managers that we could get the shirt shipped out to her so that she could give it to her son for his birthday.
That is such a great story. And I've known Kiki like a little bit for a few months now, maybe a little over a year now. And those are the kind of things that made me want to be friends with you, because you will go that extra mile. You really are the type of person who would go and try to do that. I'm going to share an experience that I had when I was working for a professional baseball team. And there were certain areas of the stadium where if you were scheduled there that day, you would be there when teams were taking batting practice. So they would hit home runs into the stands before any of the fans were there. So normally what they asked you to do was to just leave the balls there, so when the fans got there, they maybe would get a little souvenir. But we talked to our bosses and said, listen, a bunch of older people know that this is what's going to happen, so they're going to come in here and there's going to be middle-aged guys who are going to run up and down the aisles and get all the balls. So can we pick them up before the game and save them for kids who either don't get them when they're there for batting practice or whatever? So we would do this a lot, but there was one time in particular that I gave this little girl a ball, and she didn't really know what was going on at all. But she came up to me about 6 times during the rest of that game to thank me. That is no exaggeration. Like, first of all, I handed it to her, and she looked at her dad and goes, well, that was certainly a surprise. It's those kind of memories that when you can make them for people, you might be having a bad day. You might be focused on something completely different and not even thinking about the magic that you're making for somebody. But then those type of memories really make it click for you. So I can definitely relate.
Thank you so much for the compliment, first of all. But also, I love that story. Like, I love making magical moments for people. That's one of the best feelings ever.
Has this Disney college program changed your perception of the parks? Do you now look at them more from an insider perspective, or do you still have that wonderment when you walk into the theme parks and you still get that excitement?
It's a mixture of both. So I've always been like a huge Disney like history and fun facts, like hidden secrets type of nerd. And so after working for Disney, now I like actually know everything. And so I love to go to the parks with my friends and be like, "Oh, look, did you know that? And look, did you see that? I can tell you exactly what that is and where that's from." So I still love it, and I still get very excited to go to the parks.
I know there's sometimes that people say once they know too much, they feel like they lose the magic. But I think I'm one of those people, and I think you are as well, that you actually get more into it the more you know. Like knowing some of the backstage stuff, knowing some of the behind the scenes stuff actually makes you appreciate it more. And some people are different and they like it the other way, and that's cool as well. Like everybody enjoys their vacations the way they enjoy them, but I definitely understand how you really like to know those ins and outs, and that makes you appreciate what's being delivered as a product even more because you know everything that goes into making that product. I mean, we use the word too much, but magical. I mean, that's what Disney is selling. So you said that you worked at Yacht and Beach Club, but you also got some experience in the parks. Is that correct?
Yes.
So from the outside looking in, I would imagine that it's a much more laid back experience when you're working at the Yacht and Beach Club as opposed to in a park. But I could be completely wrong. Am I accurate? What was the difference between working at your main location or being in one of the theme parks?
They're very different. Working at a resort, most of the time, it's pretty relaxed, but you get huge like rushes of people early in the morning and late at night. But in the middle of the day, it's like very relaxed. Whereas in the parks, it's very empty, like early in the morning and late at night, but you get a lot of people in the middle of the day. Plus, the parks are just so much bigger, so there's so much more going on. Whereas the resorts, you're just in your little gift shop.
Can it actually get more stressful than when you're in the parks because people have to get that coffee, people have to get that thing that they need before they rush to the parks, and they're on a time crunch and they have to get there because they're resort guests and the parks open half an hour earlier for resort guests and they need to get on Rise or they need to get on Flight of Passage? Can it actually end up being more stressful at the resort than in the parks?
Yes, 100%. The parks get very, very busy, but it's not as stressful because you have a lot more people there to support you. And the guests understand like it's a park, there's a lot of people here. The resorts, first of all, seeing people before they get coffee, sometimes people are not the most magical. So that could make it a little bit harder. Plus, late at night, they're trying to get their kids to bed. That stuff can definitely make it more stressful at a resort.
So, Kiki, first of all, it was so fun having you back on the show again. I always love talking with you. And we have been talking about possibly meeting up in the parks and doing some dual vlogs that you can catch versions on both Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty and on Kiki's channel, That's So Kiki. So make sure you are subscribed to both channels and checking out videos as much as humanly possible. Thank you for being here, Kiki.
Thank you so much for having me.
This is Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty, and it's time to bring on Sarah Says. As always, thanks for joining us, Sarah.
I'm happy to be here.
So with Halloween on the horizon, you texted me and said we should do a Halloween episode. And then as we were troubleshooting back and forth, we came up with an episode completely dedicated to the Haunted Mansion. Definitely one of our favorites of all the Disneyland and Walt Disney World rides. So this is going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. I'm super excited for this one because, it's not nearly as impactful to do like a Halloween episode of It's a Small World.
I don't know. That can be kind of spooky depending on the vibe. You have obviously never been stuck on Small World for longer than 10 minutes if you're saying that. But you did an awful lot of research for this episode. It's going to be really fun. I think some people are going to learn a lot about the Haunted Mansion, and some people who listen to us, let's be honest, are probably really, really into this stuff and know it already. But you're going to
Yep.
be proud that we went and dug up all that information for you. It's going to be a fun one. We decided to start earlier this month. I asked a bunch of Haunted Mansion trivia questions on Twitter, and we got, I'll be honest, like I was surprised with the response we got. We got a lot of people voting in these polls, a lot of people commenting on the polls, and we're just going to go through some of them, have our thoughts on whether we're surprised or what we think, and then we're going to move on to some other things. So the first one that I came up with, I was pretty sure this was going to be the way this one was going to turn out in the end of things. Your favorite stretching room portrait. So coming in last place was the Man on TNT. That was 10%.
That doesn't surprise me.
The 3 Men in Quicksand. We have a very pro-woman crowd, apparently. 11% for the 3 Men in Quicksand. The Woman on the Grave, 20%. A commanding 59% victory for the Tightrope Woman. I'm pretty sure this doesn't surprise anybody. There are 2 reasons that I think everybody loves this portrait. First of all, she's just really cool looking. She's got a cool vibe.
Mhm.
But second of all, and I don't know how many people know this, a little bit of a spoiler alert here, but that's also where the door opens from the stretching room, and you can go under the Tightrope Woman, and that's how you can get in line quicker. So
I
if you're
did not
looking
know
to
that.
just move through as quickly as possible, go under the Tightrope Woman, and that is how you do it.
I wonder if that's the same at both Walt Disney World and Disneyland. I've never paid attention.
I
Ever.
have paid attention, and it is the same.
Great. Oh, that's so cool. That's funny that, I mean, of course she is the best. She's my favorite. And you can't really see it on my picture, Rick looking at me right now, but I have a whole little shrine to her in my dining room. She's my favorite.
That is awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's an iconic dress. The outfit's cool. It's very Hot Topic, which is what Haunted Mansion is right now. It's like the Hot Topic of Walt Disney World and Disneyland. So I get why she is so popular. Next question. How do you feel about Walt Disney World getting Hatbox Ghost?
This was a good one.
It is a good one. I am going to say I was actually surprised because when this was announced, I felt there was a lot of pushback for it. But we have Love It, 72%, and Can't Disneyland Have Anything Special, 28%. But that was something I heard people saying, can't Disneyland have something special, something on our own? And apparently a sizable amount of people, I mean, a third party in a presidential election would love to get 28%, but
totally,
it's not as an unpopular idea as maybe I thought. I did think there would be some people on the Disneyland side of things who would object to it. Now we're going to talk about how do you feel about the Nightmare Before Christmas overlay at Disneyland. So there are a lot of thoughts about this, and I thought this one was going to be pretty controversial, and it does have some offshoots. So here were the 3 options I gave. Love It, and it should come to Walt Disney World. That got 43%. Love It for Disneyland exclusively, 47%. And Hate It, 10%. Now, I personally fall in the Love It for Disneyland exclusively category. I think it's something interesting, but I really don't think the way people vacation to Walt Disney World, that it would work there, that it would make any sense to shut down a people-eating ride like Haunted Mansion for some of the busiest months. Because you basically have to do that before school even starts for the year. So you're going to have those mid-August families who will be missing this. And that's honestly, mid-August is when they start Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party. So I just don't think it makes sense for Walt Disney World. But I don't even think you're a fan of this being at Disneyland.
I am not going to lie. I am so over this overlay. I mean, I really dislike the fact, like when we were there, we couldn't ride Haunted Mansion. It was closed for an overlay for Christmas. And then the last time I rode it, the Haunted Mansion as the Haunted Mansion, not the Christmas one, or Nightmare Before Christmas one, was probably like 7 or 8 years ago. I can't remember. So we met, my husband and I went, and they had just reopened in February from taking down all of the stuff. And I'm just so over it. It's cool. It's fun to see once or twice, but I am much more of a Haunted Mansion purist. And I'm like, this is great. Can we leave it in Tokyo? I want the real Haunted Mansion. I mean, I want my kid when he goes for the first time. I'm planning, like, when we eventually take him, we have to make sure it's at a time it's not in the overlay. Because I just am like, no.
Well, I've been talking with Marissa about her going for the 100th, and she hasn't been to Disneyland in a while. And I can say to her, Oogie Boogie Bash, seeing the holiday overlay, that makes sense for her because she hasn't been to Disneyland in so long, and she's never seen the Nightmare Before Christmas overlay. But for somebody like you, you're like, I keep seeing this same overlay, or I can't even do Haunted Mansion because it closes. And that's basically one of the reasons I don't think it makes sense to do this at Walt Disney World, where so many people are vacationing. I do have to also mention that a very sizable amount of the comments said, but shouldn't Walt Disney World get a Muppets Haunted Mansion overlay?
That'd be amazing.
For the holidays.
I would sell things and go see that. Sell my house and go see Muppet overlay. That'd be amazing. Bring that. Get rid of Nightmare Before Christmas. Bring in the Muppets. Let's do it.
So I just want to say there, you got your mention. Jacqueline, Marissa, Adam, you all got your mention for the Haunted Mansion overlay, which I think would be really cool. I have some ideas about Haunted Mansion and the Muppets, and we'll talk about them in a little bit. This one I think is interesting. This is a Walt Disney World specific question, but we may end up going to talking between the two of us about Disneyland. Where does Haunted Mansion rank on your list at Walt Disney World? So these are the 4 categories I created. My favorite attraction, 2 through 5, 6 through 10, or not in my top 10. And this is talking about Walt Disney World, so not just the Magic Kingdom, but all of Walt Disney World. My favorite attraction got 19%. 2 through 5 was 45%. That ended up winning. If you can do math, you could pretty much figure out that one won. 6 through 10 got 24%, and it isn't in my top 10. I think this is a controversial opinion. 12%. I'd have a hard time thinking of 10 rides at Walt Disney World that are better than Haunted Mansion. Personally, I have it as my 3rd favorite ride in Walt Disney World, so I had it in that 2 through 5, which was most people.
Yeah.
What would you say, in your opinion, as far as the rides at Walt Disney World? Obviously, you haven't done everything because you haven't been there in a few years, but you can kind of extrapolate.
Oh, totally. I think when I voted on this, I did 2 through 5 as well. It's probably my number 2 ride. Like, it's hard to think because, you got to think about all of Walt Disney World, not just Magic Kingdom. Because in Magic Kingdom, it's obviously the best ride, in my opinion.
Hold on.
Okay, I'm not talking about Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. That's number 2.
Okay. All right. Okay.
For me personally, yeah, I put it in the 2 through 5 as well because it would be my number 2 favorite after Everest.
Okay. What would you say if we would change this question to Disneyland? Would it still be in 2 through 5, or
Yeah.
without Expedition Everest, would it then move up to the number 1 spot?
No, because then there's Rise of the Resistance, and I haven't ridden
Rise
the
of the Resistance is in Walt Disney World as well, so
that's
it's
true.
the
But I
same
haven't been on
one.
that one. So, it's the same one. Okay, so yeah, for Disneyland,
It would
I
still
would have to
be
say
2 through
Rise and
5.
then Haunted Mansion.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I'm trying to think because while there are definitely differences, and I do like Disneyland's Haunted Mansion more, at least right now, until Hatbox Ghost comes to Walt Disney World, when we might have a little bit more of a level playing field. It's similar enough to the version at Walt Disney World that it doesn't feel as special for me over at Disneyland. So I still have Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. I still have Rise of the Resistance. Then there's Radiator Springs Racers, Mr. Toad. It's a lot harder. Roger Rabbit's Cartoon Spin. It gets a lot harder at Disneyland for me. So I might have it in 6 through 10 in Disneyland.
Okay, that's fair.
But then again, Disneyland also doesn't have a people mover. Anyway, we're going to move on from this question. Don't get me started. I was hoping at D23 that we would get that announcement. Or at least when they announce the price hikes, that we would get that announcement.
Like, here, feel better about our $10 more a ticket, and you can have the people mover in 20 years once we refurbish Tomorrowland.
Instead of what they did, which was, hey, we're raising prices at Disneyland, but don't worry, Walt Disney World's getting Fantasmic back. What is the most iconic scene in the Haunted Mansion? The ballroom, the bride's attic, Madame Leota's crystal ball, or the graveyard? Before I tell you how people voted, what's your guess?
Most iconic, the one I voted for, because it always popped up in my head first, is the ballroom scene. Because as a kid and everything, that is what I remembered as a child. But Leota is my favorite. My favorite scene. So, but I voted for the ballroom. I think that's the most iconic.
I'm going to tell you it wasn't even close.
Okay.
This wasn't even a contest. One of them got over 50%.
Really?
In a 4-way race. The bride's attic came pretty close to 0 at 5%. The graveyard, which is almost the majority of the ride.
It has the most animatronics.
16%.
Wow, that's it?
Madame Leota's crystal ball, 27%. The ballroom, 52%. People love them some Pepper's Ghost.
Yes, they do. They really do. I think I remember reading some of the comments on that one, and I feel like every other comment was like, that Pepper's Ghost effect.
I do think it's what I always thought of when I was a kid and we would go and I would think about the Haunted Mansion and try to explain it to people. I feel like, you know, when you're a kid and things look bigger and things seem like they last longer and stuff like that. I feel like when I was a kid, I thought that ballroom scene was a lot more of the ride than it is in all actuality. But that was what I remembered. That's what I left the ride thinking about being the best part of it, or the most, like we said, iconic. It's one of those words that we use too much sometimes, but
well, even look at Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party, that whole chunk of Haunted Mansion, and they have all the people dancing, and they have like it's become iconic in that parade, just as that huge chunk of the parade of just people dancing that are dressed like ghosts.
There's so much to look at in the ballroom scene. And I feel like in the graveyard, there are a lot of animatronics, but your vehicle tells you where you're supposed to be looking. You move back and forth, and it just shows you a scene, and then another scene, and then another scene. But when you go over the ballroom, you're spotting things. So every time you go, you're looking at different things. If you ride Haunted Mansion 5 times on your vacation, you're going to be seeing the most new stuff when you're in the ballroom than when you're in the graveyard. Because the graveyard, maybe you'll be like, oh, there's some kitty cats over there. That's cute. But that's basically the only thing you're going to discover the second, third, fourth time through. Here is a tough one. We're talking about Walt Disney World, but we'll have a conversation between the two of us about Disneyland after this. How long will you wait for Haunted Mansion at Walt Disney World? No more than 10 minutes, no more than 30 minutes, no more than 60 minutes. I have to ride it on my vacation, so anything. What would be your answer, first of all?
I have never waited more than 10 minutes for the Haunted Mansion at Walt Disney World. And that is because I have never stood in the standby line, ever. We have only ever done it when there was Fast Pass. And every time we got our Fast Pass, we literally walked onto the ride. So if I wasn't in that situation, I would wait no longer than 30 minutes, to be honest, because that's a long time to wait. But I have never waited longer than 10 minutes to get on that ride.
No more than 10 minutes was 15%. That's almost a little bit too much to ask. No more than 10 minutes, less than a 10-minute wait. I mean, even when it's a walk-on, they listed at 13, you know?
Well, yeah, because it takes that long to get through the queue.
Does take that long to get through the queue. The last time I was there, it was a 45-minute wait, the last time I actually did it. And they still had a lot of the queue like blocked off. They didn't even need it. And that was for a 45-minute wait. They don't need a lot of that queue unless it's 70, 80, 90 minutes.
That's fair.
But it is a cool queue.
Yeah, it is a really cool queue from all the pictures and things I've seen. That's very cool.
No more than 30 minutes is 64%. I figured that was probably going to be the one that won. No more than 60 minutes, that's 11%. And I have to ride it, so anything. Those are probably the vacationers who are being honest.
I hope so.
Right. I hope it's not a regular who's waiting 60 minutes or more for that ride.
Right.
10% of people have to ride it, so they'll do anything. Now, what would you say at Disneyland? Would it be the same for you, no more than 30 minutes, or
Absolutely.
would you wait a little longer because you haven't done it in a while?
No, it would be no more than 30 minutes because, number one, the queue stinks compared to Walt Disney World. You're looking at grass, and eventually you get into those switchbacks where you can see some headstones. And it's still not that much. But if the queue is reaching 60 plus minutes, you know you are waiting outside of the gates and you are going to be lining up near the French Market. So absolutely not. If the line is going anywhere near those gates, I'm not going near that ride because you are going to be there forever.
Now, I am a vacationer, so I don't get to do Disneyland's version quite as often. So I might say no more than 60 minutes. I might go a little higher because it would be that important to me. But I also know if I'm on a vacation to Disneyland, I'm going to make sure I go enough days that when I'm there, I can find that time where it's going to be under 30 minutes. Worst case scenario, I rope drop it one day and it'll be nothing because everybody's going to Rise or they're going to Indiana Jones or Space Mountain or Peter Pan. Everybody's going to Peter Pan, let's be honest.
Yeah, they are.
Now, here is the question that I never ended up asking. And I am going to try, maybe this is fool's gold again, but I'm going to try desperately to get you listeners to start commenting on the YouTube channel. And I want to hear your answers in the comments on the YouTube channel. Are you excited for the Haunted Mansion movie next year? And here are your 4 options. No, the Eddie Murphy one is canon to me. Yes, get it right this time. No, keep some rides park exclusive. Not everything needs a movie. Or 4, D, I guess. No, the Muppets Haunted Mansion is canon to me.
That's funny.
I know a lot of people are going to comment, no, the Muppets Haunted Mansion is canon to me. I think that might be the one that I would jokingly say, but I
Yeah.
am excited for it. I want to see what they do with this new version. I know you personally really like the Eddie Murphy version.
I do. It's so entertaining. I think it's so cute.
It's not a popular opinion, but you are allowed to
No,
hold it.
but
And
it is mine.
maybe just defend the Eddie Murphy version for a quick minute before we move on to something else here.
Well, one thing I love about it, I'm not going to lie, I love that it is one of the first movies that I have seen in a really long time from Disney. I mean, this was a long time ago, too, that this movie, I don't remember what year that movie came out. The whole main cast are people of color. And that's so cool. And I love that. And it's like following the story of them. And I think that's amazing. That was before now that I don't even know, like, sorry, I lost my train of thought.
I'm going to guess that you're saying before the live action remakes, which started incorporating more people of color into the movies.
Yes.
So this was sort of Disney's first attempt to tell a story that everybody knew, but through the lens of people of color, a family of color being the main characters. I think using the Disneyland version of Haunted Mansion, using the New Orleans Square version of Haunted Mansion, it was very, very important to have a black family being a part of that, because that is definitely the demographics of New Orleans. And if you whitewashed that, it would be a little weird. It would definitely be something that you'd be able to notice. So
well, and the spin that they took on that movie, like the story of it, I liked that it isn't the story of the Haunted Mansion. Like, it was this family and a realtor and like all this, and kind of, I just think it's really entertaining. I think it's funny. I think that it's cute, and I love watching it and picking out all the Easter eggs from the ride. And Jennifer Tilly as Madame Leota is just like, I love it. I love it. I am interested to see the new one, though. I had high hopes for the Guillermo del Toro version that was going to be creepy and scary, and got the kibosh. And now this one, and they're like, Danny DeVito's going to be in it. And I'm like, oh, here we go. Don't get me wrong. Love Danny DeVito, but not for a Haunted Mansion movie. So, I could be proven completely wrong, though. I could love it, and it could be my new favorite movie ever, but I guess we'll have to see. But Jamie Lee Curtis is in it, and that's absolutely amazing, and I love her. So
I'm going to do a little side tangent on Jennifer Tilly, because I was just rewatching Cheers recently. I think it's on Netflix or Hulu. I can't remember if it's on Netflix or Hulu. But anyway, I was rewatching Cheers, and there's one episode where they hook up Frasier with this character, Candy, who is played by Jennifer Tilly. And obviously Frasier being stuck up. One of my favorite lines from that episode is, "Goodbye, Frasier Crane, pompous intellectual. Hello, Frage, pompous madcap," which I think is a really funny line. But the one that Jennifer Tilly delivers that is so funny, Frasier says, "What's your name?" And she says, "It's Candy with an I." And Frasier goes, "Oh, with an I, that's interesting." And she says, "Yes, I used to spell it with a Y, but nobody took me seriously." And with Jennifer Tilly's voice, it is just such a funny line.
That's
you know
awesome.
what, Sarah? I didn't know if we were going to have enough information to do this, but we just got through the trivia questions, and I'm going to say that we can now stretch Halloween into November. So all of you who are worried about all the Christmas stuff encroaching on your holiday and say, we just celebrate Halloween until October 31st and then we forget about it. No, we are going to continue talking about the Haunted Mansion in next week's episode of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. Sarah is going to be back on the show with tons of information on the Haunted Mansion. I can't wait to talk to you next week.
So excited to come back.
This has been episode 91 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. If you're looking for some unique ways this weekend to celebrate Halloween, on Sunday I'm going to be posting the complete Boo to You parade from Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party. I have a great vantage point for it, and I'm going to show you absolutely everything. You're really going to love it. Make sure you are subscribed to the Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty YouTube channel. Watch it, like, comment, do all the social media things. Sarah will be back on the podcast next Thursday to continue our conversation about the Haunted Mansion. Until then, have a great week.